Brambles tore his stockings and scratched his knees, but except for vulgar tent caterpillars and the wild cherry trees, Denny's efforts went unwarranted. It was dusk when, searching among the speculatively shaped leaves of a sassafras, Denny found a specimen beyond his most arrogant expectations. At first sight, due in part to the twilight, it looked more like some shriveled dragon than a caterpillar. Between it and the twig a filament stretched, and this, added to the fact that when Denny touched it gingerly he could feel its puffy flesh contract the way caterpillars do, convinced him that it was no freak of nature, or if it was a caterpillar freak, and therefore nothing to fear. Tearing it cautiously with his tweezers from the twig, he put the monster in the diamond matchbox he always carried with him, and running breathlessly, blind to briar and brambles, Denny headed home. It was supper time when he got there, and his father was already at the table, his left hand turning the pages of a book, while with his right hand he ladled soup into his mouth. Denny had clattered up the stairs before his father was aware of his presence. "You're late, son," he said in the moment between two printed sentences and two spoonfuls of soup. "I know, father," Denny replied without stopping, "but I got something." Another sentence and another spoonful. "How many times have I told you to be explicit? Something can be anything from a captive balloon to a case of the mumps." From the second landing, Denny called down, "It's just something. I don't know what it is." His father mumbled, and by the time he had finished a paragraph and scooped up the last nugget of meat out of his soup, and had addressed his son with the words, "Whatever it is, it will wait until you have your supper," Denny was peering at it through the glass of the lamp chimney. Even in the bright electric glare it was reptilian. It was large for a caterpillar, between 4 and 5 inches long, Denny guessed, and was a muddy purple color, its underside a yellowish black. At either extremity it bore a series of 3 horny protuberances of a vermilion shade. They were curved sharply inward, and stiff little hairs grew from them. From its mouth there protruded a set of small grasping claws, like those of a crustacean. Its skin was wrinkled like that of a tortoise, and the abdominal segments were sharply defined. The feet lacked the usual suction-like apparatuses caterpillars have, but were scaly and shaped like tiny claws. It was indeed worthy of its castle. It was not to be found in any of the illustrated books Denny had. He would guard it and keep it a secret. And finally, when he presented its metamorphosis into a winged thing to the world, his father's renown as the captor of extraordinary beasts would pale beside his own. The only thing he could guess at, and that because of its size, was that it was the larva of the moth rather than of a butterfly. He was still peering at it when the servant girl brought up a tray. "Here," she said, "if you're such a busy little gentleman that you can't spare time for your supper like an ordinary boy. If I had my way, you'd go hungry." She set the tray down on the table. "Phew!" she added. "The smell of this room is something awful. What have you got there now?" She was about to peer over Denny's shoulder. "Get out!" he shouted, turning on her. "Get out!" "I'm not so sure I will if you speak to me like that." He arose and in his fury pushed her hulk out the door, slamming it and locking it after her. She started to say something on the other side, but what it was Denny never knew or cared, for his own voice, screaming and "Stay out!" sent the young girl scurrying down the stairs to his father. It was typical of the man that he merely commiserated with the girl, and agreed with her on the urgency of some sort of discipline for his son, and then, settling back to his pipe and his manuscript, dismissed the matter from his mind. The following day Denny told the girl that henceforth she was not to enter his room, neither to make the bed nor to clean. "We shall see about that," she said, "though it would be a pleasure such as I never hoped for this side of heaven, were I never to enter that horrid-smelling room again." Again his father was approached, and this time he reluctantly called his son to him. "Ethel tells me something about you not wanting her to go in your room," he said, peering over his glasses. "I'd rather she didn't, father," Denny replied, humble as pie. "You see, she doesn't understand about caterpillars and cocoons and things, and she messes everything up." "I will. But who will see to the making of your bed and dusting and such?" "I will," asserted Denny. "There's no reason why if I don't want anyone to go into my room I shouldn't have to make it make up for it somehow, like making my own bed and clearing up." "Spoken like a soldier, son," his father said. "I know the way you feel, and if you're willing to pay the price in responsibility, I see no reason why you shouldn't have your wish. But," and he pointed a paper knife of walrus tusk at the boy, "if it isn't kept neat and tidy, we'll have to rescind the privilege. Remember that." His father, grateful that the interview had not been as tedious as he had anticipated, told his son he could go. From then on, Denny always kept the key to his room in his pocket. And we'll pause there.